All right, so this is the master exam review for Power Standard 4. Number 1, consider the functions below. Determine the value of g of -3, f of 4, and h of -1 for all the problems below. So for g of -3, all we have to do is put -3 in for the x term. Now, all we're doing is putting -3 in for the x, but that negative sign here still is out in front. The squared is still on top, plus 4. So -3 squared, if you put it in your calculator, will give you +9. If you didn't get +9, you've done something wrong. Make sure you put it in parentheses. So you're going to get negative with a 9 plus 4. -9 plus 4 is going to give you -5. That is your final answer. For part B, I'm putting 4 in for the x term. So you have -2, negative, and then 4. Everything gets still written down except for we're replacing the x itself with 4. Plus 3 minus 5. All we have to do is order of operations. So the stuff inside the parentheses goes first. We have -4 plus 3 is -1 times -2 minus 5. -2 times -1 is +2 minus 5 gives you -3. All right. It's really important that when you're replacing the variables with the numbers that you put it in parentheses. That's going to really help you out. Last one, putting in -1 for the x terms. So we have 2, putting in parentheses -1 to the third, minus the absolute value of 1, minus 5 times -1. All right, so we can go through this. -1 to the third power is -1. -1 times -1 times -1 is still -1. -1 times 2 is -2. Minus the absolute value of -5 times -1 is +5. Plus 1 is going to give you 6. The absolute value of 6 is still 6, but there's a minus sign in front of it. So now we have -2 minus 6, which gives you -8. And that's it. All right. Solve for y for each of these equations. So the first one is we're going to add 10 to both sides. So you have x plus 10 equals 3y. Then to get y by itself, we divide by 3. So y will equal x plus 10 divided by 3. Next, the first step we have to take is we're going to add 9. So we have x plus 9 is equal to the cube root of y plus 2. Now what we have to do is we have to get rid of the cube root sign before we can subtract the 2. To get rid of the cube root sign, we're going to cube both sides of the equation. Now the x plus 9 is going to be in parentheses when we cube it. Okay, the cube root and the cubed on the right side go away. Left with x plus 9 cubed equals y plus 2. Lastly, we're going to subtract the 2. So we have y is equal to x plus 9 cubed minus 2. Oh. That's it. Lastly, this one. First step, we're going to subtract 8. We have x minus 8 equals 3y squared. Now before we can square root to get rid of that squared on the y, we have to divide both sides by 3. So we have x minus 8 divided by 3 equals y squared. Okay, now to get rid of that squared, we're going to square root both sides. So everything. So the squared and the square root will go away. We're left with y is equal to square root of x minus 8 divided by 3. Okay. Liz started the problems below correctly, but does not know how to finish them. Finish the problem that she started. So we want to algebraically determine the inverses. So we started with the equation. We got rid of the g of x and made it a y, but everything else stayed the same. And then to find the inverse, you switch the x and the y. So that's what she did in step 2. So now, just like we did up top with the last 3 problems that we did in this review, we solve for y. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to add 1. So we have x plus 1 equals 2/3 y. Okay, next, to get rid of that 2/3, we're going to actually multiply by its reciprocal. So we're going to get y is equal to, actually we're finding an inverse, right? So we're going to put inverse of y equals 3/2 times x plus 1. And there you go. That's it. Here, and the next part of this, same thing. They got rid of the g of x and made it a y. Then they flipped the x and the y around. So it's our job to solve it. First step, subtract 4. So we have x minus 4 equals 3 square root of y. I'm not going to write that little 2 because you don't need to. Okay? And when you're doing square roots. If that was a cube root, you have to keep it in there. But it's a square root, so I don't really need to write it out. If you want to put it in there, it's not technically wrong. I'm just letting you know. All right, before we can get rid of that square root, though, we have to divide both sides by 3. So we have x minus 4 over 3 equals the square root of y. All right? And then lastly, to get rid of that square root, we're going to square both sides. We're going to put this left side in parentheses when we square it, though. So the squared and the square root will cancel each other out. We'll have the inverse of y equals x minus 4 divided by 3, all being squared. And that's the answer. All right, that's it. Good luck on the master exam.